Welcome again to this channel, a YouTube channel, Talent Institute channel. You know that I like a lot to interview people that they have something interesting to tell us about NLP. Sometimes they are really experts in NLP, sometimes they are just people that apply NLP in an interesting field. This time we have here Cooke, an expert NLP trainer, an expert in education, in children education, basically. And adult. And adult education, okay. Part of the educational team of the Society of NLP. So welcome, Kay. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Travis.
So usually with Kay, we talk a lot about children, especially because I have two kids at home. And one of the things that, and I was reminding that to my wife just one day ago, it's when you met for the first time my son Rock is very introverted, he's very shy, he doesn't like to interact with people a lot. But I remember clearly how you were the only person in the whole room full of trainers and master trainers of NLP that you managed to have a conversation with my son. And that, it was something that it really shocked me. And I would like to know a little bit about what is the clue to open up children? I mean, what did they have so special or what do you know about them being so special that it makes you open almost any kind of door?
Well, I think there are many secrets, but if I had to use one word, it is attention and full attention. And when you give somebody your absolute full attention, they feel it through every fibre in their body. And I think if there is one way, if we had to choose one single strategy to enable a child to thrive, it is to give the child your full and utter attention. Now, we could talk about whether that, how that is. We could look at metaphors or energy or submodalities, or just, we could use lots and lots of different ideas and explore the different levels. But I think you start at the biggest chunk, which is to give your undivided attention so that every fibre in their soul knows that you are with them. And it's interesting you mention Rock. I had a client many years ago. It was a very dysfunctional family, and the mother had been referred to me for pain through her doctor, and the doctor had said, medically she's okay, but she has this big pain problem, so let's look at the subconscious. So, okay. So I worked with her for 1 or 2 sessions, and she said, I have a problem with my child, my daughter, maybe about 8 at the time. Can you work with my daughter? I said, yeah, absolutely. It's what I love doing, it's my passion. Always the parent really should be in the room as well, because we work with the whole system, or as much of the system as possible. So the mum came, brought the 8-year-old's daughter, and this child had actually experienced all the psychiatric services, all the psychological services. This was a child who was highly stressed, in a state of continual alert, and her only strategy for survival was rage. Lots and lots of problems that our system puts in a box and says, this is a problem child. The mum didn't know how to cope with it. I knew there was a connection to the dysfunction of the child and the pain and the this and... So I booked her in for 1 hour. So normally if I work with children, I work with them for 1 hour maximum, between 40 minutes and 1 hour. And a lot of it is play. And in my room there are lots of toys and arty things, craft things. And so we had a really great time. We played, we talked, we did drawings and all sorts of cool things. And I taught her a few mind experiments. And then the grandmother came, took the little girl away so that it was the mother's turn next. And once the daughter had left the room, 1 hour later, the mother said, "How did you do that? We've been to see every psychiatrist, every psychologist, every social worker, and each time the daughter has, after 5 or 10 minutes, had a big tantrum and left the room, refused to be there." And she asked me the same question, how? And it made me think, how is it? And it is something to do with when you give that person your total and utter attention. Yeah. It is so powerful. And
one of the things that strikes me is when, first of all, I had a conversation with Leonel, he's the Mexican hitch, expert in seduction, persuasion, etc. And one of the things we were talking about, the importance of paying attention to the other one, to show like honest interest in the other one. And it's like the same thing you're saying. It's like, well, if you pay attention to the child and you show interest, then magic happens. And I was thinking how many times when you see an adult talking with a child, is the adult talking basically based on his own her own interest towards the child. Meaning, how many times you see someone speaking to the child, saying stupid things, talking like it was like not a non-intelligent human being, and saying things that they don't make anything in that human being because they are not interesting for him. But then people complain about that child not paying attention. But the first question is that, did you do anything to attract his or her attention? Because the only way to do that is going into that world, right? And it was interesting because thinking about the world of seduction, of the world of public speaking, is always the same. Is when you go there, then the person responds. Otherwise, it doesn't, right? Some days ago, I was talking with my sister, and she was saying that in my nephew's class, they were saying that class, specifically that class, it was a difficult class. And it made me half laugh, half be upset, because I thought, how easy it is to say that this is a difficult class. Okay, are there difficult classes? Difficult group of children that somehow they code all the same and all together in the same class, or what? What do you think about that?
What do I think about that? I think the word difficult is an interesting label that we give to children, to classes. What does it mean? What are we talking about? We're saying that the teacher has difficulty in getting the results that he or she is required to get by the system. That's different to having difficult children. So when you look at labels and their usefulness, we can just think of a difficult class as the teacher has given a label to excuse themselves for not drawing out what they need to from the child or children. I think it's back to where is the attention again. You say that child is difficult, that class is difficult, instead of saying I have difficulty with the child or the class. It's where's the responsibility, but where is also the attention? So for me, I would go, oh, I'm having difficulty communicating in the most useful way with that child or that class. What do I need to do in order to make it work? So I have to try harder. That's very different to, which reminds me of the Rosenthal experiment.
So. Exactly. Well, and I was thinking about that in a different way, but it leads to the same place. That is, well, if you say that that class is difficult, you are opening the possibility, the door to the parents to think the same. I mean, well, if the child is difficult, then as a parent, the child is difficult, so then I don't have all the responsibility about that. And also, as you were now mentioning, the Rosenthal experiment is like, and because he's difficult, and we treat him as difficult, everything becomes more difficult. So, yeah. So it's a self-fulfilled prophecy, right? So, well, then what, Kay, when you have a child, because you have your own practice, private practice and everything, and they come and they say that they had problems with the attention, deficit of attention, ADD, etc. What is your approach about this topic that, for example, here in America, because now here people don't know it, but we are in Orlando, the percentage in HDD has skyrocketed for the last 10 years. It's like almost it's an epidemic here. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Many things. So two key things. One is, if you haven't already seen it, and I'm sure you have, but if your viewers haven't already seen it, watch Ken Robinson's mm-hmm. TED Talk about creativity and education. Because the system is so out of date for these energetic children that are coming through who need something very different from the mould that they're being forced into, first of all. And the difficulty always with the education system, I'm just trying to sort of work out what's the key thing here. The key thing is what we know in NLP is you treat each and every person as a totally unique construction of electricity, chemistry, biology, beliefs, values. So we treat everybody as totally and utterly unique. And so how can we do that if we say, okay, we've got 2 million children who've got ADHD. They're no longer unique. So my metaphor is that every child that walks into my room or a classroom or a home or whatever, they carry on their back an invisible backpack. And I teach that inside that backpack they've got 3 key elements. They've got a flashlight, so they decide where they're looking. They've got a map of the world as they know it to date, and they have a power pack that drives them. And that translates, through my work, into prefrontal cortex, so flashlight of attention, choosing where to put attention deliberately. The map is what we would call the emotional brain, the limbic system, where we have the codes, the neural coding for whatever their experiences are to date. And the power pack is the 2 key players for me. The key player for me is the autonomic nervous system, which is either the sympathetic nervous system or the parasympathetic nervous system. Keep it simple. So we just look at those 2 drivers. Is that child driving its whole self in a fight-flight situation? Therefore, they're in survival mode, or are they in thrive mode? And unless we address that, first and foremost, we can't begin to get the best out of where they're putting their attention and what they're looking at on their map. And I think we have to get that clarity of each child has their own totally and utterly unique way of contents of an invisible backpack and way of driving their brain. Of course, as NLPers in the NLP world, we know that, and we can do that. So to sort of try and answer the beginning of the question, how can we most easily educate parents and teachers and social workers to understand that you have 10 children in front of you, each and every one of them is different, and to respect their differences rather than go, oh, you're too difficult for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I guess that is a systemic thing too, in terms of, well, when you have, for example, in UK, when they are, I don't know how it's called, the kindergarten, when they are very, very, very small, you have like 5, 6 per class with people helping, assisting. In Spain it's different. You could have up to 20 from the age of 2 or 3. So they makes it harder to handle all the children. So I understand from the other side that they can say, well, I have 27 children in my class, I cannot pay attention to each and every one of them because I don't have the time for. Okay, I understand that. The other problem I can see, it's the same problem that is nowadays with neuroscience and behavioral economics, that all of this is based in statistics. And it's the 48% of the 70% of people, the 67% of people do that. Yeah, okay, but it's just a statistic. This means that there is a 23%, 40%, or a 15% of people that they do a different thing. And among those 70%, probably there are a lot of variations inside. So it's very easy to put a number or to put a statistic in front of, but as you say, then every person is different. That percentage can fall in one side or another, and the teacher or the parent has to be able to see that and to respond according to that. And that's, well, as you said, how many people are trained in that way, and not to treat the class not almost maybe as a whole, but almost there. It's like, yeah, I pay attention to each child, yes, but I teach all of them in the same way. So, okay, you're doing something, is paying attention, but then you're training, explaining in the same way.
And that, that brings us back to the point about, look, what Sir Ken Robinson talks about, the system is not fit for purpose. It can't be fit for purpose. Yeah. Because I've been a teacher. As a teacher, we have our backpack is full of whips and
labels,
and you need to make sure that you have fulfilled this criteria, you've met that target. Yeah. So inevitably you have to go for a compliance model in order to shoehorn the kids through to meet your targets, so you get your performance bonus at the end of the day, and you keep your job. So if the teacher's backpack is on alert, then they're not making good decisions either. And so to unravel that, how do we do it? Then we have to do it, as Richard says, how do you change the world? One child at a time, one person at a time. And so that comes back again to how can we persuade parents to take a stronger influence over the holistic well-being of the child. What is possible for the child? There's a lovely story I sometimes tell, you may know this, I sometimes tell parents or teachers, is depending on your faith belief, but let's just say you have a faith belief in angels, we'll use that as the appropriate one. You say, okay, so when you're asleep tonight and an angel comes to visit you and says, do you know what? In your family or in your class, there's one really special person, and that person is going to change the world. I can't tell you who it is because we we can't do that. But that person is going to be the most influential person in 20 years' time. Your job is to guide them to their maximum potential, to optimize them. But I can't tell you who it is. Now, what would you do differently?
Yeah, that's a very nice thought.
Because, you know, what is possible for you, for me, for that child, for this child? What is their potential? We don't know. We don't know what the potential is, to, you know, for muscle power or for, you know, academic learning or... But it's a nice. It opens up the brain.
Okay, and you're talking about schools, but what about the parents? I mean, and again, I'm talking about my own country, but the way of thinking is that no, education happens in the school. I'm just a parent, and I'm the provider, but I'm not the educator, right? And I can see a lot of times this, and people are crazy sending the children to foreign language extra classes, and then piano, and then this, and then that, and the child gets home exhausted, and parents are exhausted because then they have been working and etc. So they
pay for the lessons.
Yeah, to pay for all of that, obviously, and everything ends with a child exhausted, maybe doing the homework, finishing the homework, then playing with whatever, and the parents watching the TV while they are eating a takeaway or whatever. With that context, thinking in the parents should do parenting, and they should be the people that enlight that child, because if someone really can see what you can become, it should be your parents, and the person that you trust the most should be your parents, right? So in the Rosenthal experiment, your parents should be the ones thinking, no, my child is super special, and he will become in 20 years someone special. But how many parents do really think like that, and how many parents do they get involved in that, in being at home, trying to understand what is going on in the school, what is working better, what is working worse, how they can support that, and how they can give like an emotional support, maybe it's okay, but still there is something there.
Well, I think there are two levels that are important here, and if you think about the brain, the human brain, in this context of we can think from top down, from thinking mind to limbic system down to basic brain, or we can think in terms of bottom up. And I think the teaching system is really about taking the top down approach, strategies, cognitive aspects and so on. And that's Kate Benson, Director of Education for the Society, does an amazing job in terms of teaching the top-down stuff. What I think we really now need to pay much more attention to, and this is particularly important for parents, the education of parents, is what's happening from the bottom up. So by that, if you haven't got some really essential basic needs in place, the brain is not primed from the bottom to be in a thrive mode, and we need the brain to be in a thrive mode. We need it to, and so, okay, what are the basic needs? What has to be in place? And they're obviously hydration, nutrition, movement, those kind of things that we are fortunate to be able to provide. But there's something else, and you start to move up into the social stuff. The connection to another person, trust, touch. What happens to the neurochemistry when we are talking and touching.
Yeah.
And when we start to sort of take that bottom-up approach, so what's happening neurochemically and how are we settling? In my work, the Happy Brain Project, I use the little green reptile, little crocodile, as a, what's happening in that what's happening to him? Is he like, oh, I'm so relaxed, yeah, go ahead and thrive, or is he like, and we see more and more and more kids coming in.
Well, if the providers don't provide the emotional haven, the place where they can feel secure, because maybe in the school they are bullied, or maybe not, but they feel that they are less than other ones, but they come home and the parents are saying, well, you're a disaster, look what you're doing, you're never on time, blah, 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 blah. Then what is the safe place? Where is that safe place? It doesn't exist, and I think
and that's the power, that's the magic of language, as we know in NLP, that every word that lands, and it's not just the language itself, but the whole energy behind it, the state that's transferred to a child, and increasingly, for a lot of reasons, the parents and people are on alert. Well, that gets transferred through to the child, and the child can't articulate why we call it stress. It's a big chunk, but why the brain is resonating in a sort of maybe a high beta state. The child doesn't understand.
Well, if the child is just modeling and the parents are stressed, it's enough. It's enough to get stressed. But at the same time, if you are so demanding that what he is doing or she's doing is never enough, and then it
for whom?
Yeah. No, for the parents. It's never enough
exactly.
for the it's not never good enough for the parents. What happens is then when they get to us when they are adults, what you have, it's very insecure people, low self-esteem, and everything comes from that moment of their lives when the people that should provide that security, they didn't do it. And I think that is something that can happen in the school, but the place to happen is at home, and that requires time and effort and intention.
Education.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what you don't know,
of course, it's true.
It's the we talk a lot about presuppositions in NLP, and we talk about linguistic presuppositions, and so the presupposition in the Rosenthal experiment was that that group wouldn't do well, that group would do well, but there's more, and again we come back to the basic brain stuff. There are the behavioural presuppositions that occur, and we need to pay more attention to them. So you have a toddler, for example, who is learning to walk, and how is that little world being influenced by the language and the attention and the behaviour of the adult around it? So if the adult is universal sounds, what's presupposed in that? That's before we even start with the linguistic part of it. So, but if you don't know, then you don't know. And so the education, it's not education even, is the wrong word.
It's awareness, probably.
It's awareness.
It's awareness.
It is that child isn't going to harm itself if it topples over. In fact, it'll have a really good learning experience in being able to reorientate itself without any anchors from a significant person in its life. When your attention is on the well-being of the child and its learning experience, that is easy. If your attention is on yourself and I need to be a good mother or a good father or a good uncle or aunt or whatever, then it becomes about me. And so I need to show that I'm good by I'm there, I will protect you. Who is it about? Those are real simple awarenesses, aren't they?
So, okay, and is it that what you're saying related with your own project, the project you were talking me about that you're going to release? Mm-hmm. Is it related also with? Is it connected with the parents too, or it's more for the schools? Or?
Yes. So the Happy Brain project began in 2010 when I received some funding in the UK to go into a school to teach creativity in the classroom to the teachers and to the pupils to help them to learn better, easier, faster. Yeah. And so I created a project which 8 years later, with a lot of experience and modification, has now come out as something pretty cool with lots and lots of play and fun activities. We know about, when you're having fun, your neurochemistry, well, your brain has to be in thrive, the neurochemistry is in a really great place, and it builds self-esteem. There's no judgment, there's no commentary, and we can work with the children on all of the different levels, consciously, unconsciously, in that energy field of it's all okay, what's possible. And so yes, we've got a training program, and it's going to filter through, it does already filter through to working with children directly, parents, teachers, social workers, so health and social care, and also through into the NLP world. Wow. So that's really exciting.
Sounds really exciting. Yeah. So I could be talking with you for ages because it's a topic that I'm very passionate, and I feel that it's very important.
If I might just add, so my children are grown up now, and I have a choice. I could look back at my experience as a mother, and for a long time I was a single mother as well, and I could look back and go, oh, you were terrible, you were terrible. Or I can look back and go, what did I need to know? What was missing for me then that I can draw from, learn from, and bring it into the world today with the skills that I now have. And that's the path that I've taken. So any number of really hard experiences, including children with labels and difficult children and difficult situations. But we can learn so much when we ask the question, what would have made that difference there? And let's take it.
From my experience and obviously opinion, that any manual is just a manual, because if we start with the idea that every child is different, I can talk about my own experience in my house. It's my first son and my second son, they are completely different. So everything that it worked for the first one, it's not going to work for the second one. So I think that parenting, it's just an ongoing process of absolute learning all the time,
and calibration,
readjustments, and trial and error, and that's the way, I think that's a healthy way to take it. And if people understand that it's a learning process for themselves and for the children, I think that the experience is amazing, and not just providing the food and the money, but also enriching themselves in the experience. So
the big question for me then is, so for you as a parent of small cute children, when you, and this is what I would ask any parent, is, so when you run your own timeline forward to 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40, whatever, how do you want your relationship in the future to be with your children? Because when we make that commitment, then your unconscious mind has a pretty good direction to be going in.
It's something that I always have in mind. Always think how I want my relation to be in the future with them, not just now. What I'm building for the future, and also I'm building between them, because one of the things I do with them it's to create a better bond between them.
Yes.
Because I think, well, I'll be with them 30, 40 years, but they will be together, if everything goes well, a lot more. So I think it's also important to create, not to work in competition, to make them compete with cooperatives and to support each other. That's something also really interesting to see and to have.
And that's
to make
a wonderful
it happen.
gift.
Yeah.
You know, I see a lot of families where if the parent or parents need, for their own reasons, to feel a sense of control over the family, then a common strategy to feel in control is to divide.
Yeah.
You know, if you can divide the
and you will win.
So you stay in control. They don't know any better. That's you know, there's no judgment there.
Yeah.
But if you can recognise it for that works now, today, but in the future, you've got families who are divided. So your strategy for having them cooperate and trust and build each other's sort of network of resort, it becomes a dynamic system for the future. That's a wonderful gift.
Well, okay, time is up. Thank you very, very much to being here with all of us. You remember to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet to our YouTube channel, and it was a pleasure, and I would be talking with you for ages, and that was a good excuse to have you for a while and to talk about very interesting things. And well, I hope to see you pretty soon in Barcelona with your own project, Happy Brain. I think it's going to be super interesting, and I'll be very glad to have you there. Thank you very much, Kay.
Thank you very much.
See you soon.
Thank you.
And see you soon, all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.